I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Angela.
We are the Ink Mages. Join us as we discuss all things fantasy, world building, storycraft, myths and legends, and of course, our own imaginative stories.
Hello and welcome to the Ink Mages podcast. We're so glad you've joined us. Today is a special episode because we are going to be celebrating the book launch of Angela's new book, Shadows of the Forgotten Shore. It is her first debut paranormal romance. She has stuck her foot in the water and with paranormal, which is super exciting. And I want to hear all about what inspired you to create an Irish ghost story.
This book just came to me so easily. I felt like it almost wrote itself. I'd had this idea in my brain for a while. I lived in Ireland, just the idea of this Irish coastal kind of creepy vibe, different scenarios that I could create for a story like this, but it was not real. Like it wasn't a tangible story. Like for me, when a story really sinks in, like I'm imagining it from beginning to end and it won't leave me. This one was more like a concept. Like I love Ireland. This would be a great setting for something kind of creepy, maybe a little romance. But that was kind of
must have romance. That's how we are.
That's right. Must have romance. I do. I love a good love story. And but it just wasn't really sticking to me. And I really felt like it was kind of one of those ideas that wasn't going to last. It was going to fade away. It wasn't going to actually become a book. And one day I was just, in that creative space and I started imagining my grandma and grandpa's house. So I grew up in Oregon, but my grandparents lived in Copco Lake, which is like a 45-minute drive over the border into Northern California. And it's just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but it was on this kind of man-made lake called Copco. And my grandfather, who had built all of these cabins for people to come rent out there. So they had their main house and 3 other cabins. And I kind of grew up out there. Like every summer, my parents had conferences or things that they were going to. We just spend weeks out at grandma and grandpa's house, exploring the woods. And it was like the most magical place because we could go swim in the lake, we could fish, we could go explore the deer trails. If the cabins were empty, we had them all to ourselves to just take our friends and pretend, do whatever little kids do. We just had these great spaces and it was just a wonderful way to grow up. But these cabins were in the middle of the woods and at night you could hear the coyotes yipping. And it was just pitch black. It was so scary to me as a child. And I just started really channeling the feeling of being in my grandmother's upstairs bedroom, which is the one that me and my sisters would always stay in, and how absolutely horrified I was. I was certain that there was some kind of demon that lived on the other side of the lake that was going to hit me through the window as I slept. I just had all of these horrible, scary moments in that bedroom. And I just started thinking, oh, this would be kind of cool to bring into this Irish coastal vibe, into this story. And I started thinking, oh, family curses, unforgiveness. And so this was all of a sudden the story just started coming together for me. And it was really fun for me too, because I got to pull on all these wonderful nostalgic vibes of my real childhood, being at my grandma and grandpa's house. Though the grandmother in the story and even Nora, really their story has nothing to do with mine. There was still a lot of real things, and there's a mug in the story that has an appearance, and it's my actual grandmother's mug, this mug that she had that she drank coffee out of every day, that had 70s style mushrooms on them. And they were just the way the house is built on the inside, and even the grandmother having always a cigarette between her fingers, that was my grandmother. And so there were all these things that made it very familiar, and it really made the story kind of touch a new place in my heart as a storyteller, to be able to almost even honor some of my memories in a really neat way. So even though it was pulled from kind of some of my childhood horrors, there was a lot of actually really good, resounding, good nostalgia that was mixed into this story. And
well, you tap into it really, really well, because I didn't know any of those details. But now, since I have read it, because I got to be the first one to read it. Your story opens like with that whole nostalgia memory with the horror of like a grandma and a girl in a room being terrified of the window and the curtain and could there be a demon lurking outside? Oh, it invites you right into the spookiness of the story. So you channeled it like
Yeah, I mean, it's so unfortunate that in my childhood that I had such scary nights at my grandmother's house. Maybe a lot of kids can relate to that. But
that's what we do as writers. Like the
Mhm.
things that were real to us when you
Yes,
put it in your story, it helps the story have more depth and come alive
yeah,
and be more immersive when you are tapping into things that were real to you.
yeah. And I think that was fun for me as a writer too, because if you've read my previous series and even The Lost Son of Arcades that's coming out soon, this is all historical fantasy, so either like a totally created world or it's set in a historical context that's so far removed from real life. And this one I got to really like vibe in things that I had actually touched, felt, been around. And so that was really unique for me to get to do that. And I've done that in other ways in my stories emotionally. But in this story, it was like physically also, as well as emotionally, with things that I grew up around. The smells, like I could really bring the smells to life. The stale smell of cigarette smoke, and just the feel of a cabin, and the fact that I'd lived in Ireland as well really helped me to bring in even the realism of the setting. And it was fun for me too, because the one piece of fiction is, though this place in the setting is a real Irish coastal town, I kind of made it up. Like I just
Mhm.
created my own Irish coastal town, so that again I had liberty to tell a story without somebody saying, "Hey, I've been to that,"
Town, and
town, and
that's
it's
not
not
how
like
it
that.
was.
Yeah. So I just kind of made up this town that's related to a town that would have been near the Galway coast of Ireland, near Donegal. And so I just really enjoyed telling the story. I really enjoyed the characters of this story,
So
bringing them to life.
let's dive into that. Let's talk about the characters because I know some writers, when they start a story, they'll start with the character, but it seemed like you had this idea for a ghost coastal Irish vibe maybe before you even considered Nora. So, like, how did Nora, Declan, and Landon evolve and come about?
Well, I've always loved this idea. Again, with my female characters, I like to bring in a sense, so I don't want them to be so strong that they're not relatable or tangible or not attractive, to the reader. And so I really wanted to bring in this girl, though, that was having a lot of turmoil. So the setting of my story starts in this root of unforgiveness. Like it's just this fight with her father. Her mother has just passed away and she's grief stricken. But what we don't know, and is she's in this point of grief. She's like going back home. She grew up in Ireland up until she was 12. And, here she is. She's running away from everything. And she's going back to what she knew before. Basically, all the pain kind of came in.
Mm.
And with that, we start drawing on that there's something more than just unforgiveness and grief going on here, that there's a reason that maybe what she thought was just being scared at night when she was a kid, there was a lot more to it, that there was maybe a little bit more something like a curse going on, and bringing in this family curse that also gets to pull on what I know about Celtic monsters and Celtic mythology and kind of the idea of fairies and spirits. And, everyone has heard of leprechauns and the banshees of Ireland, but maybe Balor and the Sluach and some of these the Gankana fairies, these maybe be a little bit more unfamiliar to American ears. And so that was really fun to get to pull on, to bring in kind of my ghosts
Yeah.
and spirits. And this is what Nora gets to come into. And I really, really like Nora. She's just, I tend to be, as a reader, like that's why I love your Conjurer's Curse series so much. I really love a good manly hero in my stories. Like my Lost Son of Arcades. I mean,
Yep.
I think that Duin is probably one of my favorite characters because
Yeah.
he's just
Love
this
him.
great, great, strong character. But Nora, I really loved her. She was a real treasure for me to write. And then, of course, you've got Declan, who had been her best friend up until she was just yanked away from Ireland, yanked away from him. And here she is returning to this friendship. And I also like nobody's perfect. And so I try to not write my characters as though they are, but just this idea of a good old boy that has honor. I really love Declan. Like,
Oh, he's adorable.
He's just wonderful. He's honorable. And he comes in and he is still just as connected to her as she is to him. Those memories and what they had, that friendship as children. And then comes Landon, who is kind of a little bit more of our mysterious character, who she also knew when she was a child living in Ireland. And he also returns into the fray. There's a lot more mystery going on with him. And maybe he knows a little bit something more about the curse than the rest of them. And so that was a fun character to write. And honestly, when I first started writing him, I wasn't sure where I was going with it. I was like, where am I?
Yeah.
And it was kind of great because I didn't know. There was kind of this mystique and mystery throughout the story that remained. One of the compliments I got from one of my early readers was like, this is very M. Night Shyamalan-y with the way that you're twisting and turning and making me think, could it be this or could it be that? I'd never written a mystery before. But I really wanted to make this story have that thriller, like mystery vibe where you're like, I'm not sure where the story's going. I'm not sure who I can trust or who's, who this character really is or what's going on with this, and just bringing in just enough food for thought that my readers are going, is it this, is it that? Like they're trying to attach, all of these things to the characters in the book. And so it was super fun to write.
You definitely kept me guessing, because I had to, when Angela writes her and I read her books, and when I write and she reads my books, we're sharing it as we write it. So it could be like we get a chunk. I'll get like a chunk of 5 chapters, and then it's like she'll leave me hanging, and I'm like, no, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what. I can't spoil things, but like I have so many questions. I'm like, I think it's this, or maybe it's this. Oh no, you just threw something in, and now I'm like, I have no idea now. So. You did such a good job of keeping that mystery and teasing so many different ideas with like the mythology and the curse, that like anything could have been going on. And there's there's also plenty of warm spots too. There are some side characters that bring some laughter and levity and jokes, because as fun as it is to be hooked into a thriller or a very tense, high stakes story, we do love banter, because that's life. We all have our stressful things in life, but like we just need someone to tell the joke.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's where it's almost like this is very paranormal thriller, mystery vibes, like, who knows what kind of ghosty paranormal creatures are, manifesting. However, it also has that small town cozy romance vibe kind of mixed into it. That was fun for me to write, and kind of that wholesomeness. So as much as this is, you've got your dark themes, there's also kind of a wholesomeness attached to the story that I think people will really love, which is what made it an okay book for my 12-year-old to read. I was like, oh, is it going to be too scary for her? She really wanted to read it, and she loved it. She absolutely loved it. And so I love the fact that I could make it creepy and scary, but not remove it from being able for younger readers to read and enjoy, and for it to be an okay story for them to read. But yeah, I think the hardest thing about the story is the fact that there are so many things that you don't want to say, because you don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to allude to anything. I don't want to. Anyone who reads the book, once you look at the cover, you'll see all kinds of Easter eggs on the cover that you probably didn't know were there until you finished the book. So I think that's going to be kind of fun for people to look back at the cover after they finish the book and be like, I get it. I can see some of those little things that you put on there just for fun.
I have a question, so sometimes we have our ending figured out, and I'm curious if you did, because I know at one point I was like, is there a theme that you're trying to convey? And you're like, just wait for it. Just wait for it. I was like, I knew she had something in the works. And sometimes when we write a book, we don't necessarily have our ending figured out. We don't have our
Mhm.
theme figured out, but I like that you already knew where you were going with it by the time you got to the ending. Then I'm like, yes, you're
Yeah.
right. I see it.
Ta-da!
I see it now. Now everything makes sense. But was that like tricky to get to go back and weave it in, or did you like, no, I purposely was plotting this out and knowing where I was going by the time I got to the ending with that theme?
I think I had probably pantsed this book more than I had any other book I've ever
Because
written.
she's a plotter.
Yes,
Angela's a plotter to the quick.
definitely. But I had a very strong idea of the theme starting. So, and you'll see that once you read the end, you're like from chapter 1, it's starting, it's very clear. And the theme really does go throughout. But there was some mystery. So I knew how I was going to resolve it. So I knew like where we were going to land the plane. But there were some things like even some of my characters, I'm like, I wasn't sure how I wanted to define them. Like, I was
Mm.
like, I think some of that was part of the fun thing and created some of the mystery. Cause even for me, I'm like, what is it? You know, like, is this a curse? Like, what is actually going on? And so there were some the decisions that I was making along the way, even in the final scene when everything just gets hairy. There were just things coming into my imagination I was writing that I had no intention on bringing into the story. That just sometimes you have those genius moments. I'm not saying my book is genius, but you have
It's
these
the
moments where
aha.
you're like, oh my gosh, like where did that come from? That is so what it's almost like you realize the idea didn't come from you, you know,
Right.
and it's like came from someplace, you know, inspiration came in and so I was pantsing a lot of the finale and how it was going to resolve and what the actual outcome was going to be. However, I knew again how I was going to land the plane. So I was kind of a little nervous going into this one just for that reason. Cause I was like, I really wanted this to have a mysterious vibe, but I wanted it to make sense. Like I didn't want to be, write a mystery that was like, I don't understand how you arrived here. I needed all of those things to connect. And so there were certain things where I'm like, okay, this has to connect to this. So at the start, if this is how I'm going to have it, then it has to arrive here.
Mm.
So I had some of those things worked out, but there were a lot of decisions I was making along the way too, that created the whole element and the theme, you know, the overall theme. It starts, you know, with that grief and unforgiveness, and so it really carries on throughout the whole book and has a really strong resonance, and hopefully for my readers
Yeah.
will actually hit them in a real place in their heart.
I love so much that you do have a powerful theme that is woven into your ghost story. I'm not a big paranormal horror reader or watcher, and the last October I did watch quite a few horror movies, and I can't say that I'm a fan of the genre, but
Right.
mostly because I left feeling empty.
Yes.
I left feeling like, so what was the point?
Yeah.
What was the purpose? Oh, I get it. We shouldn't unbury an animal from an Indian burial site because things are going to go wrong and people die. But I'm like, that's not really a theme.
Right.
You know, uh, okay. I know people love Stephen King and Pet Cemetery, but I was like, I don't ever need to read that book.
Right. Right.
So I'm drawn to themes. I want to know that there's a
Mhm.
purpose in the story. And so it's great that you took a paranormal, a ghostly story, put in just powerful themes that are going to resonate with readers, because then I'm going to enjoy that story and it's going to have
Yeah.
meaning and I will have takeaway and I'll feel like that was worth my time, and now I'm just going to I'll love the story more.
Yeah. I think that's for me too. I'm not a horror movie. I can't do it. Especially being a mom, like if I watch a scary movie, I'm gonna go to bed like planning how to save my children from every like bad thing that could possibly arise. Particularly zombie movies, I can't watch anymore. I used to watch them in my early 20s. Now I can't watch them because I am planning the zombie apocalypse in my brain and how I'm gonna save my children, get food, get the guns and the hatchets, like whatever I'm gonna do to like make sure we survive. I can't do it. But there is a certain genre of thriller that I
Mm,
absolutely love. And I mentioned M. Night Shyamalan earlier,
yeah.
but one of my favorite all-time movies is Signs.
Yes.
I
Love Signs.
love that movie so much because, again, you've got this scary scenario. Again, you're not really sure what's going on. You've got these aliens. What are they there for? Are they bad? Or what are they going to do? Like this wonderful mystery vibe. And yet there is a theme throughout the entire story that is woven throughout the dialogue from
Yep.
beginning to end. Like the dialogue in that movie is fantastic.
It's
It
good.
just, I mean, to me, it's like one of my top tier movies. But I loved how the whole story was this preacher who had lost his
It's
faith.
faith. Yeah.
And so him coming through the story, realizing that he might have lost his faith, but the God he believed in hadn't lost faith in him. And it was going to show him like that everything
As a purpose
has a purpose.
and meaning.
Oh, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I'm like, yes, give me those kind of stories all
Yes.
day long. And so for me, this was my first time stepping into telling a story like that. And I would never say that I am like at the M. Night Shyamalan level of telling a story like Signs, but I definitely, that was my goal in writing it, was being able to write a story that had substance like that. It wasn't just a thrill to be a thrill or a scare to be a
Yeah.
scare. It really had substance and purpose, and the darkness even has a purpose. Like it's just not coming out of nowhere. And so it was really, there was a lot of me that went into the story, and yet it just came out like magic. And so,
Yeah.
and yet the story's so simple. Like it's not, it's a standalone, it's not a huge world build. It's a story that happens over a couple days. And so in some ways it's kind of simplistic, but there's a lot of complicated puzzle pieces that were
Yes.
included into this story. And definitely I would say that Signs was something that motivated me in writing this story.
A story doesn't have to be super complicated. I
Mm,
think we can overcomplicate it and then we lose our minds and we just
yeah.
need to dial it down to like what is the simple theme?
Yeah.
What is the point that you're trying to convey and stick to that, hone in on that because that's
Yeah.
where you're going to get resonance with your
Yeah.
audience.
Guys, today's launch day. I'm so excited. So
Yes.
if you want to pick up a copy, and I love your support, you want to pick up a copy of Shadows of the Forgotten Shore, I don't think you'll regret it. I think you'll really enjoy diving into this book. It's a quick read. A lot of my readers read it in 2 to 3 days. Like some have sat down and read it in one afternoon. So it's a good quick read. I think you really enjoy it. Today's my launch day. Help me celebrate, give me some support and love. And
Now, where can people get your book?
you can get Barnes and Noble. You can get it at Amazon, just anywhere books are sold, really. But yeah, go online, click. You can even go onto my Instagram page. The links are right there to go ahead and click and purchase a copy of my book. And, for those of you who are buying your book today, if you DM me, there might be another chance for you to win a copy. So let me know if you purchased my book today. And anyway, we love our listeners. We love you here at the Ink Mages, all of you who have loved us, supported us, listened to our episodes. So please leave a like, leave us a comment, let us know your opinion on books like this. And we will see you next time.